In this video, we're going to do an introduction to the concept of subnetting. So remember in a previous video, I talked about how IP version 4 addressing was very inefficient and that we're running out of addresses and that you can either have a Class A, a Class B, or a Class C network. And within the Class A, you have millions of addresses. Within the Class B, you have roughly 65,000. And with the Class C, you have 254 addresses that you can use. And you see that huge discrepancy. Well, one way that we solve this issue as an interim solution is that we use the process of subnetting to break up our larger networks into smaller networks. So that's what subnetting is all about. Now, one thing that you're going to see in the IT networking world is you're commonly going to see subnet referred to as a network. So the word subnet and the word network, they're the exact same thing. So somebody may say that I'm on the 192.168.1 network, or somebody else may say I'm on the 192.168.1 subnet. It's the exact same thing. And so that's where the term subnetting came into play. So how does it work? Well, I'm going to show you a depiction of it further on in this lecture. But just as a quick introduction, the way that it works is if you remember that for all of our IP addresses, the Class A, the Class B, and Class C, a certain amount of bits are reserved for the network portion and a certain amount of bits are reserved for the host portion. So if you wanted to break up your host portions into multiple different networks, you could borrow some of those bits. So we're taking some of those bits to create more networks. And that's pretty much all there is to it. Now, I'm saying that's pretty much all there is to it, but there really is a lot of math behind it, and we're not going to talk about that in this course. So if you do want to learn the actual details behind subnetting, then I recommend doing some research outside of this course, going to YouTube and looking for videos or purchasing a book or something else, because simply I could spend hours teaching you subnetting. That's how detailed it is. And you're going to find classes just solely on subnetting all by itself. So let's talk a bit more about subnetting. So why do we do it? Again, we do it to break up our larger networks into smaller networks to make them more manageable. And if you aren't subnetting, you're really just putting yourself in an unrealistic situation. So for example, if you were a large corporation such as Google and you had 20 campuses across the world and you were assigned one Class B network, well, it's not realistic, and it really is unrealistic for you to try to utilize just one network because you're going to have multiple networks. So what you have to do instead is you have to subnet to take that Class B and break it up into multiple different smaller subnets, and then you're going to assign those to those different locations. And so that's why we subnet. Now let's go ahead and let's take a look. Let's visually look at how this works through an example. So if you look at this, assume that this is the whole pie. Let's assume that we are assigned one big network and we need to break it up into multiple ones. Well, just kind of picture an apple pie where you're cutting it up into pieces, and that's pretty much all subnetting is, where you're cutting up those pieces and you're giving them to everybody else. That's what it is. Now let's go through this example just to better illustrate it. So let's assume that you're a network administrator at a computer science department at CSUSB. So that's California State University, San Bernardino, where I went to grad school. So you're a network administrator there, you're in their computer science department, and you've been tasked with setting up 8 new 30-student computer labs. And you've been assigned one Class C network. You've been assigned the 200.15.178.0 Class C network. And you know that this Class C network alone supports a total of 254 hosts by default. But here's your dilemma. You need to set up 8 different computer labs. So you need to set up 8 different networks, but you've only been assigned one network. And so what do? Well, knowing this, you need to break this one network up into multiple networks. So we know that we have 8 different networks we have to set up, and each needs to support up to 30 different students. So that's going to be approximately 250 different computers we're going to need to support, and we have a total of 254 available. So what do? Well, we need to break this up into 8 smaller networks that support those, and we subnet. That's all that we do. And so subnetting is going to allow us to break this large network up into multiple different smaller networks, aka subnets. And that's where this picture of this pie comes into place. what you'll notice, I know that the font is small, but we have a total of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 different pieces here. And each one supports a total of 32 addresses. And so we've taken this Class C network and we've broken it up, and now we can go ahead and we can say, okay, this subnet is assigned to classroom lab number A, this subnet is assigned to classroom lab number B, and so forth and so forth and so forth. And if you think about it, if you weren't able to subnet, you would have to go back to whoever is assigning out the different networks, and you'd have to ask for 8 different Class C networks. But again, that's inefficient because each Class C network is going to support 254 hosts, but you don't need that many, so that's why we subnet. And that's just our quick introduction to subnetting. Down here is another example. We have 3 routers, so we have our wide area network down here. We have a local area network here with 2 systems. Again, we have a local area network here, and we have another one here. So for example, if you were the administrator of this network here, this larger multiple networks, and you needed to set it up and assign it different IP addressing schemas, then the most efficient thing to do would to be able to subnet your IP addresses, because if we look at this on these local area networks, there's only 2 devices connected each one. So it's not efficient to use a Class C network. So that's why we subnet. That's our quick introduction. I know that this is very high level. This is really that 100,000 foot view into subnetting. But the main point that I want you to get out of this is that we can take these inefficient, large, classful, Class A, Class B, and Class C networks, and we can use the process of subnetting to break them up into smaller chunks to create smaller networks that we can hand out that are much more efficient. Again, if you want to find out more about subnetting, please look into it on your own, because like I said, you can purchase entire books, you can purchase entire courses, you can watch hours of videos just to learn all about subnetting. It really is that big of a topic. But anyways, if you do have any questions about this, please let me know. If not, thanks for watching, and we'll see you at the next video.